Hi, welcome to Vibes of India. Today we have with us Dr. Manjula Pooja Shroff. She is the MD and CEO of Caldox Group, which manages some 60 plus institutions, and the institutions have some 88,000 plus students. Her second book on children, Safe Teen Steps, was recently released, and we'll be having a candid discussion with her. I'm Nandini, with me Deepal. We both will be talking to her. Dr. Shroff, welcome to Vibes of India.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to come back here.
So, your book Safe Teen Steps is all about, navigating how the kids should navigate safely on the internet. Tell us more about the book.
G. So, when I wrote the first book, this is a sequel to that one. When I wrote the first book, to my utter surprise, it became a bestseller. And I never really considered myself an author. I am truly a professional, an educationist. And that book just brought out real world challenges. It was data researched, it had case studies, and it talked about real challenges that modern parents face and how one should go about treating parenting as a science and not like an intuitive, protective measure anymore. And every time I asked the question, I realized that the time for good parenting had come. And the book was received well because of the time and not because it was a literary piece of art, because it's not. Both of these books are more like manuals. Both of these books are like do-it-yourself parenting. It's like telling the world that children are growing up in a world that we've never seen before. Not just the internet, but also artificial intelligence. And everything is changing so fast that if we come from the past as parenting and say, ye mere saath hua tha, and this is how I'm going to treat my kid, it's not going to work. So we have to not come from the past, but the future. And when we were, going around India talking about the previous book, there was this feedback that we got saying, teenage is a year which is very vulnerable because these kids are literally crawling on the net and open to predators, open to what we call stranger danger. And there was this feedback saying, should you not do something for teenage? And we started to work on that, and the Safe Teen book is actually a result of that feedback.
Okay. So, what has been your observation? Are the challenges faced by teenagers in India and abroad, are the challenges different?
Very good question, right? So, I'd like to say that kids everywhere are the same. I wish I could say that.
Okay.
I cannot. Data suggests otherwise. The first data that actually jolted me as a person from the field of education is the fact that there was a McAfee report that did a survey over 10 countries and said that India topped the cyberbullying. When we distill that down, what it means is that our kids are cruel, our kids are offensive, our kids are rude and lack empathy. That's not the case in the rest of the world. Western kids actually are quite empathetic, which is why the cyberbullying data also showed the fact that they're empathetic to each other. Now, when you look at such a stark data saying 85% kids are either being bullied or being, part, so either you're a victim or you're a predator, but you're in the game, it's extremely alarming.
Okay.
Yes. This is a very serious issue, as you rightly pointed out, of Indian kids topping the list of being cyberbullies, which also means that a significant portion of kids are vulnerable to cyber threats, right? So, I think this is a double-edged sword. Raising kids in the digital age, if you let them be on digital platforms, you make them face all sorts of this bullying and aggression, and if you don't, you are damned as a parent. So that very fine balance,
Right,
of raising kids in the digital era what would your couple of expert mantras be on that?
My first mantra is that we need to understand the teenage world. We need to get the fact that it's not easy on the teenagers. You know, between ages or grades of 9 to 12, which is 13 through 18, kids are going through first a lot of hormonal changes. You know, so they're going through psychological, emotional, social, physical, sexual, relationships, all of this is going on with them, right? They're trying to grapple with that. On top of that, there are academic pressures, right? Because it is during that time that they have to take a career choice. That's a huge pressure for them. And I think coupled with all of this is the fact that their world is not understood by adults around them, primarily parents. You see, the relationship of a parent and a child is so critical because that's the source relationship. If that goes well, everything goes well. You know, and if there's a crack in that, they come out to the world feeling insecure, not confident. And they take that to the internet. And now I'm going to try and give you some examples. So what is happening is, you know, we've used some words, and I'm going to explain the word grooming, online grooming, and how it happens. So there are already predators on the line, right? They're watching out for these vulnerable, as you rightly said. There will be one segment that is extremely vulnerable because they're not getting that kind of emotional understanding and support at home or by the adults. So if this kid is online, the predator will pose to be like your friend, your similar age, and by using a fake ID. First, let me give you some jargons. So, children are crawling on Insta, right? So, in the Instagram, there's of course Insta, and then there's Finsta, which is a fake Insta account. Then there's a Sinsta, which is like a secret account. And then there's a Rinsta, which is like a real account. And it's very fashionable for everybody to have multiple accounts. So here's a predator with a fake identity reaching out to you. And because it's an elderly person, they know how to sort of, you know, bring you into the whoop because they understand the emotion, they chat with the kid, they prep up the kid, they, you know, pay compliments. And let's take an example of a young teenage girl. If there is an elder guy giving attention because the elder guy knows how to play it, she's like, you know, assumed. And by the by, she realizes that nobody understands her except this guy. Now I'll give you another data that is equally shocking. There is a data that says 66% of teenagers who are chatting online with strangers, and what we call stranger danger, actually meet them offline. And these are actually predators, and anything can happen. And not anything can happen, everything is happening. It's just unknown to us as educators, as, you know, people who are caregivers, parents, just unknown. So my first thing is parents have to get in touch with the real world of teenagers.
So as an educator, you have seen, scores of kids in different phases of their lives. How is it that this sudden doom, if we can call it the digital doom, of raising kids, of predators online, of kids being so vulnerable and kids themselves experiencing a sense of low self-confidence, a sense of lack of trust when it comes to their parents, their peers, their teachers? Why this sudden shift of paradigm?
So I'll tell you what's happening. Parents feel that if you've selected and got your kid into a good school, their jobs are done. The reality is that teachers are busy teaching curriculum. Everybody is racing towards marks and careers. Who's teaching life? That is the gap. That is the crack. And that's why about a couple of years ago, I started to really create awareness saying that parenting is not over the day you select a good school. Parenting is never over. Parenting is active responsibility for your own kids. And you know, in the Indian context, each Indian parent actually thrives for their children. I don't know about the Western world, it's not as much as we Indians. Our entire lives circle around our children. We earn for our children, we live for our children, we want to, our aspirations are towards our kids. Everything is for, but is that healthy? Yes and no. If it is so, what just earning, economic earning for them is no longer sufficient. You have to be there for them emotionally. You know, today when parents say to me that, kiske paas time hai? I'm like, fir paida mat karo na. If you bring the child to the world, you owe the child your time and responsibility. You see, I'll give you some examples. We've had some late examples, right? You know what's happening. In Kota, if you don't get good marks, children are dying. We had a case, a grandmother died, the teenage girl killed herself. I mean, these are not reasons to take anybody's life, but what's happening is kids are not emotionally regulated. Nobody is regulating them. So two ways. The school has to at least be open, non-judgmental, create a safe environment where kids can speak. You know, in the book, we have a couple of case studies where actually kids were able to come to the counselor, not go to the parents.
So is it mandatory for every school to have a counselor?
Oh yes, CBSE school is mandatory.
Okay. But considering that the kids are a damn smart lot these days, would you agree with me that it's pretty easy to lodge a counselor's query or concern, isn't it, if they want to?
Of course. But you know, if a kid is really having a bad time, as in being blackmailed, I'll tell you what happens in the Predator. I'll carry on with that example. So, somebody approaches you and befriends you. It's not going to end there. Slowly, he'll start getting your private information, your compromising images. As he earns your trust, he'll ask for all of this. As long as it's happening online, the kid is feeling rather safe. Then he'll take it to the next step, saying, let's meet offline. At that point, some kids go through fear, right? And most 66% meet, others don't. If they don't, it leads to blackmailing. Because at that point, the predator will say, I will release these compromising pictures of yours. Make it viral if you don't meet me.
This reminds me of a very unsavory incident that occurred a couple of years ago when a kid, a boy from a relatively well-known family got trapped into this sort of behavior, and after being expelled from school, after a series of complaints, had to move countries, but that was not the end. Such developments, whether even because if a boy is a predator, at the end of the day he is also a child, you know, so there is lack of understanding, lack of empathy at both ends. So where do you think, is there a lacuna in the existing system?
Bang on, right? Especially if they are kids, you know. And I'm going to say this, and I don't mean to get into that incident. No rapist is born a rapist from the cradle. No murderer is born a murderer from the cradle. It is the elders around them who need to guide, right? And that's why we talk to educators, we talk to principals, we talk to parents. Every time there is a behavioral issue with kids, the counselors call the parents. We don't direct our problems at the kids. I want to thank you for raising this, right? Today, boys are equally vulnerable. You know, what's happening is at any age, girls mature faster than boys. Boys are, into gaming, into football, but girls have matured. So, if I may, the chaser is the girl. We are seeing many more cases where the chaser is the girl and the boy is at sea, doesn't know what to do. So we actually see a lot of, if I may, bullying even towards boys. And this book brings out almost 30% of prevention cases to make sure that boys are equally safe. So no gender is safe. That is one. Second, earlier we used to take, at least me personally has taken solace in the fact that, if you're growing up a kid in a place like Delhi or even like a Bombay, it can be rather unsafe because these are metros, and there's a lot of, you don't know each other, neighbors don't even talk to each other, all of that. In smaller cities, people are around and, it's a safer place. Today, that's a myth because online is everywhere. No child is safe anywhere.
So instead of actually connecting for some good causes, so-called digital media is disconnecting parents, disconnecting kids with their educators, their peer generation. So what is the right balance that one should strive for when it comes to the digital world?
So when we were writing this book, we realized that we can't tell kids, don't use the internet. Like you said, you're damned if you use it, you're damned if you don't use it, right? We realized that we need to make them aware to stay safe and navigate properly, right? And that's why we created strategies for navigation. Take the example of sexting. In India, it is actually IPC. It's a criminal act. Do you think it's not happening? With all these fake Finstars and Sinstars. So much sexting, so much nudity is happening online. The question that you're asking is actually difficult to answer. But I think that the whole world has begun to realize that while internet has its blessings and its boons, right? I mean, there's so much trade, there's so much commerce, all of that is the plus side. Communication, presentability, all of that is the plus side. Information, all of that. But for children, I don't think we are able to see even one blessing. Given that more and more countries are starting to sort of respond to this social need, Australia has already started to talk about proper age appropriateness for using social media as a law. You have to know that Rishi Sunak, when he was Prime Minister, all schools had banned social media devices. I mean, any smart devices. America is trying to get back to, what they saw is parents say that we need to connect with our children to ensure that children are safe because children are outside in the world. So America is trying to get back to what they call the brick phones, you just dial and there is no internet facility. So the world is trying to respond in different ways because we are seeing. So till now we've been talking about the psychological damage that it does. Let me take you to the biological and evolutionary damages that social media is doing or screen time is doing. When a kid is young, like age 2, 3 and you have too much screen time, the radiation, as you must have seen some surveys saying that now they're banning too much usage of the Apple Pod because of radiation and actually brain is getting impacted. Now think of a little kid who's not even 3, whose brain development is not full. That kid is watching screen and that radiation is going in. So a whole generation, COVID generation, we really don't know how early or how much of the brain is really developed. That's one fear. Second, we have been seeing that there's a lot more chashma. A lot more children are wearing glasses because of screen time. The third thing that we are seeing is what they're calling a tech neck. You know, your neck is protruded at all times because you're staring down. It's called a tech neck. There are some other things that we mentioned in the book. One thing is called carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome is for, because of constant holding, you can have shooting pain in the arms, your wrist, your elbow, your cervical, everything is getting impacted. And this is happening to kids. You're no longer waiting for mid-age to start having these issues. And finally, there's a whole term called popcorn brain, which is like, it is so short-lived that, not even 9 seconds attention span. So these are evolutionary challenges.
So what according to you a parent should do to ensure that the kid stays away from the internet and use it as much as he or she requires to for the study purpose?
In this book, we've suggested a contract, a social media contract. It's very good to do everything with the kids. Talk with them, take the suggestions, do things together, do it mutually. They feel involved. So in the contract, one could have number of restricted hours. One could have study time, even play time. If you're doing gaming, how much? In the contract, have a digital detox day. 0 screen time, which includes even television. So we've recommended that the parents sit down together. I mean, the real formula is teenagers and parents have to work together. There's no one or the other. And you create a contract which both of you respect. It is the middle line. You can't be bureaucratic about it. You can't be autocratic about it. It's not going to work. So how can you find a win-win? And I mean, to our best brain, we thought a contract is good. And so we've actually detailed out and also talk to them about sexting, talk to them about cyberbullying, talk to them about all kinds of things, including cyber sex. How much and no further. Talk to them about drawing boundaries. Talk to them about legal issues.
With how many percentage of students they talk to the people whom they are strangers to?
66%.
I think it would be a very big figure because
They talk to strangers.
yes, this is what I feel, that it is very easy to hoodwink parents, teachers, guardians. There could be fake, like if it's a girl chatting up a guy, maybe she could create a girl's ID. So you
True.
just think that there are two friends chatting away gloriously.
You put any pictures.
So anything is possible, right?
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Geography, no boundary. Nothing.
So I have a question here, that when parents themselves, we see a lot of couples who are forever on their phones rather than being with each other. Don't you think that the parents, they are the ones who are the perpetrators of this very generational crime that we are talking about?
Whether they know it or not, they are participating. Narayan Murthy said a very nice line. He said, you can't binge watch Netflix and say, study to your kid. You can't do that. You have to be a role model. A parent is a role model first, then anything else. Because children don't listen to your instructions. They learn from your actions.
And since you yourself happen to be an educator and are associated with a very prominent school, I would like to know that, I'm sure that there would be requests from parents who insist that their kids carry smartphones and devices and all that. How do you go about reasoning with these sort of overprivileged, entitled parents?
When we give admission, we take an undertaking.
Okay.
We are a no device school. At the point of admission, they sign the undertaking.
Okay.
We just do not permit devices. We are a no device school for the longest time. At one time, when all other schools, most schools were permitting devices, we were wondering if we are not doing the right thing, but it's come a full circle.
So don't they use laptops and stuff?
Not really. Labs, go to the labs.
Okay.
We don't have any device. Phones out of question.
Okay.
Our campus is device free.
So
It's all LAN.
So I have, a supplementary question to this, that in the present generation, if both set of parents have a high demanding job and the child actually needs a device, and if your school says no, how do we go about it?
See, when we drop them at the bus stop, whoever picks them up can carry a device. Our responsibility is the minute they board the bus, come into the campus, get into the bus, go out.
Okay.
So after that, they're always with devices. Trust me, these are good school kids. You know the pedigree, you know the audience segmentation. But within campus, not allowed.
So, and the problems that we are discussing, does it hold good for all economic classes of people, or the challenges are different?
So at one time, the telecom industry boasts of the fact that India has the largest penetration of mobile phones in the world. We beat Africa. Africa used to take that number one spot, and now India has taken it. That comes with its, downsides. So I'm going to share with you. Earlier, there was this whole thing about, in order to be successful, you had to thoda mehnat karna padta tha. Today, you click a picture, it can go viral. There's no effort required. There is a kid, I think in Tamil Nadu, I saw a picture the other day. In order to go viral, he's trying to kiss a cobra. Cobra bit him, he died. So, it can happen anywhere. Or kids are the same. They understand that if I put this very outlandish picture that nobody's put, I can become viral and famous. They take all kinds of risks. There is a word called selfie-tis in this book. It's
Sorry?
Selfie mania.
Okay.
You know what happens? It is like an adrenaline rush that you need to put a selfie and put it out there.
And there are so many valuable lives lost,
Lost,
because
yes.
they endanger their lives. And another very silly trend I find, I think I need to mention it here, is online validation. Like whether you put a blue mascara or whether you put a blingy sort of something, why is online validation such a big thing?
Okay, so
Is it a psychological issue, or is it simply a hormone going awry? What is it?
see, if I were to try and explain it to you biologically, when somebody likes it or comments it, in the brain actually dopamine is released.
We feel good.
We feel good, right? Now, dopamine release is equivalent to if you take marijuana or opium, right? It's also short-lived. If you take more of it, it releases oxytocin, which is slightly more addictive. So this cycle, DO it's called actually,
Okay.
dopamine and oxytocin, DO cycle keeps going. Digital addiction is the same as drug addiction. In our country, we have laws to prevent drug addiction because we can see, touch, hear. It's tangible. Digital addiction is the same.
So I believe that's the reason one of the chapters is named drug called internet.
It's actually, it induces addictive behavior. And if adults can fall prey to it, you can well imagine a teenage brain.
I think Dr. Manjula Pooja Shroff has used a very dangerous but a very realistic terminology, this addiction,
Absolutely.
digital addiction, and how dangerous it could be for young nubile minds who are yet to see the world. But this online validation, this entire experience of being very happening if you are online, that can actually ruin lives, their careers, their future prospective relationships as well. Because what is digital is not always, there's a
True.
difference between a real life and a real life, right? So, as I go through this book, The Safe Teen Steps, I think it is not just meant for schools and parents. I think this is a book that every pediatrician, every children's hospital needs to have it on their shelves and in good numbers, because as I was browsing through, I saw a couple of exercises.
Yeah.
I think instead of blaming children, it is us, we as adults, who have come up with all this different technology to market
Yeah, there's a need for
goods, to make
introspection.
profits, to bring about a revolution that is just going to benefit us. So instead of just blaming the kids, I think it is utterly important that we save them. We save them from this onslaught of a revolution which, in the name of being digital technology, actually deprives them of real innocence, real childhood. Dr. Manjula Shroff, can you please narrate a couple of incidents that you went through while writing this book? Because this really breaks my heart to see that, I just cannot blame my kid if I'm myself on the phone 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day. Or you see, dinner table conversations have all been hijacked by
The mobile-
electronic devices.
Absolutely. So, even kids who are not given devices, because some parents are very strict and they don't give devices, they use the friends' devices, and most of the kids use a word called FOMO, fear of missing out of what is happening in their social life, okay? And so they are there on the internet, and I'm going to give you one example. Name change. Ritika is about 13, and it's in the same strain of how she was groomed online or catfished online. Before that, I just want to tell you that there is pornography is another big challenge, because pornography material is completely not sieved, there is no ban, there's no nothing, anybody can access it. And the word children pornography doesn't exist, but there's an equivalent term called CSAM, children sexual abusive material. And a lot of the material that kids are putting out without knowing can actually become part of CSAM. So one kid was actually on his Insta, and and she used to put out some revealing pictures, and her parents found out and they asked her to delete everything. So she started a Finsta account, which is a fake account, and started to almost to the point of nudity. And there was a friend, a predator, who became a friend and started to ask her to meet. And at one point she was scared, and she didn't want to meet him, but it went on for a very long time. And finally, when she did meet him, she found out that it was an older person. And obviously, she didn't want to have anything to do with the guy. But by then, it was too late into the picture, right? Because he had a lot of material that he could misuse. And he was already pressurizing her, blackmailing her. Now, what happened is, because the parents had already asked her to delete her account and she had a Finsta account, thankfully, she spoke to the class teacher. And that's why we sometimes just tell our class teachers that create an environment when the child can just talk to you. Because you can save an entire life. You see, because a class teacher is more objective, right, than a parent. You see, what will happen? The parent will hit the roof because parent is now afraid of social pressure and,
and is more judgmental.
And social.
And the parents also start questioning their own value system of what they have passed on, So
this is too much
yeah.
going on there, right? And thankfully, then the counselors came in the picture, parents came in the picture. It was mediated, and parents were told not to kind of breathe down heavy, let the child recover because the child has gone through trauma. But I'm saying that thankfully the child reached out. What if she had not? These things are happening everywhere. They're happening. And this book refers to a term called scarlet letter. Scarlet letter essentially is, the point that I'm making about scarlet letter is times can change, but mindsets remain the same. Today, situationally, we are talking about all of this, cyberbullying, cybersex, all of this, sexting, all of that. At an earlier period, adultery was crime. Roll back a couple years, right? Adultery was crime. And if a woman committed adultery, double murder. So this movie actually sort of enhances this, societal understanding where the lady who commits adultery was asked to wear an A, like a banner A, every time she stepped out of her house. That was her social stigma. She was always reminded that she committed adultery. Now think of the level of trauma, psychological damage these things can do. I want you to imagine that children are going through that alone and they are way too young to understand, to manage their emotions, to regulate their emotions, to know that the world can still save their reputation and, ostracize them. It's a big, scary world for kids. I cannot overstate that fact.
I think this book is a very apt example of how kids and how their parents, their guardians, their teachers should be taking digital technology and, not just shun it off, but maybe make a proactive use of technology in a manner that really aids in brightening a child's future. But at the same time, Dr.
Call
Shroff,
me Manjula.
Okay, Manjula. What I feel is that this book is in English. The maximum vulnerable segment of this crime, I'm sure, would be those who, especially in our country, are not used to reading English, because if it's a parent at least knows, about the dangerous of or knows what it means to have a predator online, and that all of us know that most predators are people known to our neighborhoods or our families and our friends. But for someone who is slogging their way up, is not very comfortable with English as a language and wants to give a good life, for them buying a smartphone to their child could be a step towards a better future without realizing that they are actually jeopardizing their entire child's future. What about that segment of the society?
Yeah, so I guess I'm most comfortable writing in English, but I get the point. I get the point. We will have to take this to vernacular languages, and so that it reaches out to more and more people. And thank you so much for saying it so convincingly, because as you know, your voices carry weight. You are the people, you are the influencers that people look up to, that people hear, that people listen to, that people follow. And when you say that, and you're objective people, I mean, I'm still very close to the situation, because I see these kids, and to me it's part. I always ask the question to myself: what's the point of physics and chemistry and math if we can't teach a kid to live life? But when you put this out with conviction, many more people will realize how necessary this is. So yes, hopefully we'll take it to more than one language.
Yeah, to begin with, from Gujarat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll of course we will Hindi maybe and Gujarati both, because anyways we do all of our work. This is our karma bhumi, but for sure, and in any way that you can help us, reach out to as many people as we can. I'm going to leave that request with you, because you've been extremely sensitive about the way you handle the topic, because I know that you understand fully the perils. It's one thing to read the book, and it's another thing to really get there, saying that what we are saying is only the tip of the iceberg. What is unsaid, what is going on, what is reported is hardly 10% of what's happening. So the fears, the dangers it's vast.
Thank you, Manjula, for this enlightening session, and I would once more request all parents to have a look at this copy. Please go and buy your own copy.
Lives can be
We
saved.
Gujus love to share
Yeah.
and share the happiness, but I think this is one investment that you need to make for your child's safety and for your own safety.
True.
Plus, if you have any questions that you think we should raise on your behalf to Dr. Manjula Pooja Shroff, feel free to let us know the questions. Let us know what we would like to know more on this aspect. We'll carry it forward. And yes, this is not just another program for us. It's a mission for us to ensure that we keep our children safe, to ensure that cyberbullying in India is lessened, that we educate parents, kids, and in some case, unfortunately, even teachers, who may not be aware. This entire society at large needs to know the pitfalls of this so-called digital revolution. Every revolution brings forth a plethora of positive and negative things. Let us ensure that this digital revolution brings in good things. It ushers in growth, development, better rounded personality. But as Manjula rightly pointed out, in blind pursuit for academics or for any other game or for anything, let us not forget what life is all about. And life is all about staying safe and ensuring safety of those whom we love. Thank you very much, Manjula, for this enlightening session. And please, if you have liked this interaction of ours, like, share, and put in your comments, and do forward us the questions that you would want us to take them to Manjula. Thank you very much.
Thank you.